Preparing live stream. Yeah, yesterday was my first time doing this, man. So I was like, let me try this out and see how this works.
Oh yeah, we gotta. It's a little cold in here today. I had to put my jacket on. It's a little cold down here in Florida.
All right, family, we are live. We are live. Welcome to Paradigm Shift TV 314. As you can see, the one and only team Osiris is in the building. Brothers, introduce yourself. Not that you need an introduction, but introduce yourself. I'm gonna start with Big Brother, and we'll pass it down that way.
Cold in here.
Yes, sir, man. It's the brother Khonsu Seshmu Amun, Team O.S.I.R.I.S, Black Intelligentsia Guerrilla Family. And, you know, I'm here to speak on some things, bro.
All right, Mr. MVP himself.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, man? I'm Chris Harris. Many of y'all know me as MVP Chris Harris. You know, elders and peers alike might call me, might know me by the Hebrew assassin, or as I like to call myself, the mock Haru. So, yeah, we're gonna listen to Khonsu break down some things about vetting sources and the importance of sources, confirmation biases, what are primary sources, the importance of primary sources, and understanding what a fallacy is, whether it be logical, slippery slope, red herring. But mainly one thing we're going to be talking about is this vetting your sources. So I'm going to let y'all take it from there.
Right. And y'all know me. It's your brother, Pianki Patama Tulu Neferamon Ra. And like he said, we're going to let Big Bro explain some things as we start talking about these different debates and dialogues that we having about different topics in as it refers to academia. It's a method to how these conversations supposed to go. And Big Bro gonna break that down. The floor is yours, my brother.
Oh yeah, man. Peace and power. I do appreciate it. You know, we're starting a debate format. It's called Debate University, and it's just all about intelligence, being able to match your wits with someone else. But you know, I try to talk about debating. Debating has nothing to do with the real world. Okay, proving a topic in a debate format does not apply to the real world. It's an exhibition of philosophy. That's the first thing. It's not meant to give examples unless the context is dealing with something in the present. And so in order to disseminate those things, we use evidence. So it's a scientific process. And it being a scientific process, it requires the ability to observe evidence so one can be objective to what they're being subject to. So certain topics may ultimately begin as something of a subject, henceforth creating the premise of a debate. And then the two combatants will then bring forth objective evidence. So primary evidence, secondary evidence, and tertiary evidence, i.e. commentary, are usually used to validate one's claim. So both combatants go against one another to give credence to the particular subject. It's quite, how can I say? It would be unintelligent and unreasonable to believe that one particular person knows everything. People ask me, you know, Khonsu, what makes you think you know it all? And I say, no, I'm a learn it all. I'm not a know it all. I know maybe about 5% of the information in the world, and that's at best. Information is unlimited. I prefer to be considered a master student. And in that light, maybe my appearance may come across as a master teacher, learner, whatever the jargon people want to use. But I'm humble enough to know that I need to study. No matter what topic I'm going to talk about, I'm going to study it. I'm not going to talk about what I know because I barely know my name, let alone what the hell is going on in the real world. Let's be 1,000. And if I'm talking about something older than 2012, I really don't know what the fuck going on. So some of these debates about 3000 BC, and it's non sequitur. There's nothing like, you know, a lot of these pragmatic demagogues, that's the term that we use, Team O.S.I.R.I.S, are these pragmatists that are worshipped because of their personality. They're demagogues, and they create a trend. Like the biggest trend that I've seen in the conscious community is Kemet on trial. That changed the entire complexity of how people assimilate in a conscious venue, because it's that false narratives of, number one, the misinterpretation of Kemet versus Israel or people of the Levant. Absolutely ridiculous. There was no strife ever. They were cousins. They were related. They occupied the same space. They used forms of commerce in and out between each other. They exchanged languages. They exchanged motifs. So just because, like we were having a discussion before this live, you see a rose petal, the picture of a flower on King Narmer, does not mean that he was necessarily coming from Mesopotamia. And it also means it don't damn matter, because Mesopotamia and Egypt are almost hand in hand. And older doesn't mean better. It just means fucking older. You could be an 80-year-old fool and somebody 50 can teach you something. So that don't mean nothing. That's non sequitur. Instead of even wasting brain matter to get into those type of arguments, the first question is, why are we arguing this? The second question is, what is it going to benefit? Is this a constructive conversation? Is it an argumentative one? Is it interrogative? These things are indicative upon having a constructive argument. That's really what debates are. Arguments with rules. Okay, so everyone is going to have their opinion about something, but at the end of the day, the argument should be constructive. This is not a versus, especially in an argument that generally conflates from history to theology to sectarianism. We go from Egyptian cults versus modern religion systems. Like Kemet or Egypt. The term Kemet is a misnomer term. It's not the actual term.
No, it's not.
The national term for Kemet is Egypt. That's how it's recognized. Because back 3000 BC, where the hell do you find a border? Africa didn't have borders until after, right around the Arab invasion, when colonization started coming into play. Egyptians didn't go, oh, I'm in Kush. There was no border set up because there were no governments set up in that fashion. So the misnomer is the lack of understanding topography, history, geography, biology, human behavior, geology. All of these disciplines, linguistics, neurolinguistics, all of those disciplines have to be implied into a particular argument. Or the argument is circular and it's going to end up being true Scotsman between both people. You're just going to have two people arguing as true Scotsman. I'm the true so-and-so. And it's never going to go anywhere. So basically, it'll be who has the biggest ego and who can talk shit and influence whoever happens to be judging it or the crowd. So it's almost like peer pressure that folks experience in high school. Debating is an art form. It's an art of rhetoric. It isn't about being right. It's about what you can prove. It has nothing to do with the truth. Some people can't handle that. Winning a debate is about winning an argument, not proving a damn thing. And some people can't handle that. So they run the true Scotsman, conflation, shoehorning, bandwagon, slippery slope, false dichotomy. They go into these realms that they're not experts in. Most of us, including myself, even though I carry 2 degrees, so most of us, I'm gonna take a stab. 98% of us who do debating, at best, are peripheral investigators. That's number one, because we're not conducting any of these experiments. We're not conducting any of the archaeological digs. We don't know any of the people that did it. We don't know nothing about nothing. Less than 0.3% of historical scholars have been to Egypt. 0.3 in the entire world. Now there's billions of people in the entire world. 0.3. Less than 0.1% of Egypt alone. I'm not talking about any other landmarks in history. Egypt alone has been excavated. There are 99 dig sites in the Valley of Kings, and they've only discovered, at best, at recorded history, less than 0.1%. Oh man, that box is falling. Less than 0.1%. So that means that we virtually know nothing about Egypt. And I'm just saying Egypt. I haven't even got into the Levant and the Judean people. It's even less than that, because they never had an empire. They never ran anything. They were never monoliths anywhere. This is why you can't find remnants of any Judean culture. So why would I argue about it? Why would I argue about Kemet? I'll tell you why. Kemet has been Americanized in the word Kemetic. There's inference of Kemet regarding Black land and possibly Black people, but there's not enough evidence to determine either. It's still an argument on the table because there's not enough other peripheral information to prove it. Now, the reason why I'm using that as an example is to refine what we argue about when we're trying to substantiate our Africanness. Because and a lot of people don't like to hear this, but it's the truth. It really is. And I've debated it and don't have a problem continuing to debate it. We are African descendants. We're not Africans. We're African descendants by way of diaspora. We don't understand the magnitude of the African diaspora. We do not have the same customs as people in Nigeria. We couldn't even live in Africa right now. And when you go to Africa, you can't take shots just to be able to drink the water. So if you were genetically disposed to be from Africa, you should be able to drink the water, deal with the elements, eat the same food. You can't. Because you are an American African. You live in a landmass that has politically been called America. And in this particular landmass, we have different atmospheric conditions that limit our ability to live on that social structure. Now let's take this back 3,000 years. 3,000 years ago, human beings behaved a certain way. In their behavior is linked to neurological disposition. Your neurological composition is how you behave biologically. So those environments, you can't compare 1976 to 3000 BC. You can't even compare 1976 to 2020 in America. We didn't have the same mind state in 1976 that we do now in 2020. So how the hell are you gonna have a mind state of a Northeastern African who didn't call themselves African back then because that didn't exist. That term didn't exist. How can you call yourself an African back in 3000 BC, 7000 BC, 6000 BC? Now the pliers were going around saying Black power. It's non sequitur. It makes absolutely no sense. So I want to kind of give some disambiguation to how we ascertain evidence so that the arguments are more pristine. Because the arguments are too vague, and I noticed that in judging in other debate leagues, how these topics are dead in the water. Like the premise alone undermines anyone's ability to act intelligently. Like you don't have a chance in hell of exhibiting any form of intelligence just with the dumbass premises. Like if I was to debate a Hebrew Israelite in 2020, I will only debate you on Mishnah, Gemara, and Talmud and Torah. I'm not debating you on the King James Version. That is the English version that was approved, that was authorized to use from the Great Bible and other Bibles. It wasn't the Bible. It just happened to be a Bible that was pushed because of the political influence behind it. Doesn't make it the definite article.
Which I'll be doing a presentation on this platform, Brother Pianki, about why King James had an authorized Bible. Because many times people, what they're doing is they're bringing forth the King James Bible. And what Brother Khonsu was sitting up here saying is, you're thinking like a Protestant or a Catholic when you're bringing forth a King James Bible. All right, because that Bible was produced for political reasons concerning King James and his territories. That book was not produced by any Hebrew priest, by any Hebrew scholar. That book was produced because of the political situation in its time frame. You know, Khonsu, if you don't mind, can I get about 6 minutes? I want to explain to everybody what a primary source is, and I'll let you continue on.
Okay.
All right, so I pulled an article up. Can you give me a screen share, Brother Bianchi?
You can. Let me make sure.
Enable it.
I enable you. You should be good to go.
All right. So what I want to do is I want to introduce what a screen share. I'm not what a screen share is, but I want to introduce select a window that I want to share. Here, let me get this up right quick. Screen share. Where am I going with this? Okay. Yeah, right, not there. I don't want to use that. I want to use this right here. Okay, can you see this?
I can see it.
I can see it.
All right. So this was a paper done by a young lady by the name of Stephanie Kerensky. And she's a librarian at Randall Library, which is in Randall Library. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you all what a primary source is real quick here. Let me move this out the way. All right. Now, primary sources are defined as first-hand evidence of an event that took place in the past. Examples of primary sources are diaries, correspondence, photographs, newspaper articles, and autobiographies. Basically, anything that documents an event as it's happening, or a record of an event by someone who was there as a participant or observer. We just heard Khonsu get pissed off because of some of the premises that people present as an argument for a debate, such as the Exodus happened. And they'll read the biblical narrative to you and say, see, this is a record of it. No, it's not. It's a story of it because no one can write. The story is written in a third person view. That's why it says, and Moses, and Moses, and Moses. It never says, and I split forth the sea as my God commanded me to. So we know it's being written in a storybook form. It's written not to be literal. So when you hear Khonsu saying that these premises make the argument dead in the water, these premises make the argument dead in the water, it's because most people don't understand what a primary source is. So unless it's a record or unless it's something of a record that's being recorded in that time frame, then it cannot be a primary source, such as the Diary of Anne Frank. That is an excellent primary source of what the Nazis were doing to the Jews at that time. That is a primary account of how she feared for her life. All right. Now let's continue on. Khonsu, interrupt me if I'm incorrect. Okay, Khonsu agrees. All right. For example, if you're doing research on the Women's March in Washington, D.C. in 2017, primary sources might include photos and videos of the march, social media posts by participants, newspaper articles written about the event, and interviews of people who participated. Now, by contrast, secondary sources are written by historians and other scholars to describe and analyze the past. These type of sources are typically either books or articles, and almost always make use of various primary sources as the main unit of analyses. So when you're using a religious text to describe history, what primary sources do they have listed in your biblical account? Bianchi's laughing. What primary sources do they have in the biblical account to help sustain what to create your argument, help sustain your argument? There aren't any. It's just that simple. It's cut clear and dry. There are none. Let's get down to it. I'm almost finished. Now, why are primary sources important? It might help you to think primary sources as the raw data that historians use to analyze historical events or time periods. Scientists do original research by conducting experiments to collect data to analyze, but historians do original research by searching for the primary sources on their research topic. With secondary sources, other historians have already made their own interpretations. This is why you hear Khonsu saying, "Sir, that's commentary." He'll tell you that's commentary. That means nothing right now. You're showing me commentary, right? And it says, with secondary sources, other historians have already made their own interpretations of historical events, but by looking at primary sources, you can interpret them for yourselves. So when you read David Rowe's book, and those people know who I'm talking about, that is in fact commentary, all right? And most of it, the things that he's produced have been rejected by the mainstream scholars, all right? So let's stop, take a deep breath for a moment. Think about our example of social media posts about the Women's March. This is hypothetical. You could use them to make arguments about the way the Women's March was perceived by its participants, the march as a form of social protest in the early 21st century, even the importance of online social networks at the time. So this is how you can use primary sources. I want to give some examples of primary sources, and I'm going to give it back to Brother Khonsu here. All right, this is very quick. Let me move this over here. Bang. All right, primary sources. Let's read this again. Primary sources are immediate firsthand accounts of a topic from people who had a direct connection with it. Primary sources can include texts of laws and other documents, newspaper reports by reporters who witnessed an event or who quote people who did, speeches, diaries, letters, and interviews. What the people involved said or wrote, original research, data sets, survey data such as census or economic statistics, photographs, video, or audio that capture event. Now, watch some people say, see, we have a census in our Bible. See, there's speeches in the Bible. See, there's letters in the Bible. I dare you to do that, okay? And this is not Bible bashing, but you have to understand what is being said here. Let's move on. Secondary sources. Secondary sources are one step removed from primary sources, though they often quote or otherwise use primary sources. They can cover the same topic, but add a layer of interpretation and analyses. Secondary sources can include most books about a topic, analysis of or interpretation of data, or otherwise use primary. Melvin, all right. Analysis or interpretation of data, scholarly or other articles about a topic, especially by people not directly involved. Documentaries, though they often include photos or video portions that could be considered primary sources. So here's something very important, and this is why I got this right here. It says, when is a primary source a secondary source? Whether something is primary or secondary source often depends on the topic and its use. A biology textbook would be considered a secondary source if in the field of biology, since it describes and interprets the science, but makes no original contribution to it. Understand what he just said. On the other hand, if the topic is science education and the history of the textbooks could be used as a primary sources to look at how they have changed over time. We're going to look at more examples of primary sources. And this is why Kemet is so important in arguments, because they have original artwork, they have original writings, they have original letters, and historically they can be proven. And they have treaties, original treaties, as we see with Ramses and the Hittites. So it's artwork. Primary sources contain artwork, diary, interview, letters, performance, poems, or treaties. Secondary sources are always article critiquing the piece of art. That could be the difference between an archaeologist and someone who studies archaeology. It's two different scenarios. All right. Books about a specific subject, a biography, a dissertation, review of play, treatise on a particular genre of poetry, or an essay on a treaty. Those are forms of secondary sources, and many more. These aren't the only forms of primaries and secondaries, but there are other forms of the like. So I wanted to share that with you all. With that being said, I'm gonna give it back to my team. We have Melvin, the Grand Archivist in the house, Archivist in the house, and I'm gonna let y'all take it away.
Ooh, that's a lot, boy. That's heavy. That's heavy. Brother Bianchi, did you want to say anything? I know you're hosting, man. I was happy.
First and foremost, I just want to say dua or thank you for those who don't know what that means to both of you brothers for laying down this information, because it is, you know, a lot of people who think they know what debating is, what citing sources is, what a source is supposed to entail and not entail, that don't, and myself included. So I'm being educated in some of these areas as well, to a degree. One thing I did want to ask and get clarity on, mostly for the audience, when we using sources, particularly quotes, to further legitimize our case, when are we appealing to authority versus actually, you know, using that as a method of legitimizing or solidifying what it is we're trying to put forth? When is it actually appealing to authority, and when is it not, if that makes sense?
Yeah, appealing to authority when it comes to quotes is when you improperly cite it. When you present a quote out of context, because the particular quote may be equipped from a commentative source. The quote may have been a quote based on commentary. Was the quote based on a selling point? Was the quote based on the politics around it? It all depends. Like, we did an expose on Sheikh Diop. And when we did the expose, it wasn't that we called flack. It was that people's feelings were hurt because they love Sheikh Diop. I love Sheikh Diop.
No doubt.
But we showed the political influence and agenda that Sheikh Diop had with promoting the political agenda for his people when he found his research. He was not a militant. He wasn't talking about Black power. He had a French wife. He went to schools in France, and he was a politician before he was a scientist. So we had to show that a lot of his quotes had inference of political connotation versus scholarly inference or anything that have to do with Black nationalism. But Black nationalists would quote mine Sheikh Diop to justify their arguments, because Sheikh Diop would happen to be African and happen to talk about the involvement of Africans throughout history. But that doesn't mean he was militantly Black. Right. You understand? Because the concept of racism in Africa is socially different than the concept of racism in Northern America due to chattel slavery. Right. So generational slavery in Africa is totally different than chattel slavery in America. Absolutely. Coming from Central and South America. So it's being taken out of context to shoehorn a false narrative, which is actually a fallacy, a false dichotomy. There's more that information isn't black and white. There are intangibles within a dichotomy. It's not just black or white. Just like the false dichotomy of everybody united in the world is either black or white, when nationalities or ethnic groups make up the race system. So race is a social political title. It's a social political construct to describe the social displacement of different groups of ethnic people and how they operate and do things. Basically, certain elements of culture that describe a certain group of people based on a certain period of time. So when you're not, that's lazy scholarship. That's called fringe work. When you just quote Martin Luther King and you want to try to act like you know what Martin Luther King was talking about, and then when you do further research, Martin Luther King wasn't talking about that.
Right.
You see?
Okay.
So sometimes people will take quotes, take them out of context to shoehorn and give confirmation bias without critical reading.
Gotcha.
Because it's critical thinking, but you got to have critical reading as well.
Powerful. Brother Melvin in the building. You got something you want to say, my brother?
Hey man, peace to the panel, peace to the viewership. Man, I heard y'all cooking. It smelled good. I had to peek in the kitchen. Check and see what was cooking, man. No, Chris definitely killed it. Khonsu definitely killed it. I just came to blush out with my presence.
That's what's up. That's what's
And
up.
also, I want to state, and I want to use the primary example here of what a secondary source is. David Rowe will be considered a secondary source, and he's adding his own interpretation onto primary sources. All right. Sometimes we can vet the primaries ourselves and use human logic to ascertain whether something is true or not. But because we're caught up in a lot of paradigms, hence paradigm shift television, we want to believe David Rowe's works over that of a primary source. And archaeology, or an archaeologist, is someone who would be considered a person who has the primary sources. All right, David Rowe, he would study archaeology. That means to identify an artifact. So that's the study of archaeology. That does not make him an archaeologist. He's not conducting any digs. So therefore, any information that he adds onto a primary is in fact commentary. And I want people to understand that. Just because he says something, or just because of Ahmed Osman, a D.M. Murdoch, a Shank Entidio, a who's the other brother here? Chancellor Williams, a John Henry Clark. Just because they say something does not necessarily make it true. So it's just not David Rowe, it's many scholars. And as I read the works of Dr. Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of the Black Civilization, some of the things he got wrong, but that shows that we have the ability to improve upon those works and make them better and correct what they got wrong. And that's part of learning. This is why Khonsu, you hear him say that he's a lifelong student, a master student. I believe that the what's the word I want to use here? When you cite the authoritative fallacy here, when people are doing that, it's because they don't appeal to authority fallacy, excuse me. When people use that a lot, it's because they want that information to be true. No matter what you tell them about that information, they're going to shake their head at you and say, no, he said so. Here, you don't believe me? Let's go somewhere and let's critique his work right quick. We're going to go here and critique David Rowe's work. And I just want to read something here. Oh, somebody got a screen share up.
I'm sorry.
You got no. Go ahead, Khonsu. Go ahead. I'll get to it. Okay. All right. So let me see. Now, David Rowe has him and a couple of other people have created what they call an alternative chronology called the New Chronology.
Right.
All right. Now, that's an alternative chronology of the ancient Near East. It was developed by David Rowe and other researchers. Now, this is what it states. The source that I'm reading from, the source that I'm reading from here, let me take a drink of water here. Excuse me.
Yeah, I need you hydrated for this one, my brother.
Okay. All right. Whew, Jesus. I got the heat on, and it's like 40 something degrees over here out here in Tampa, man. It didn't drop. Man, y'all keep that
cold
stuff.
in St. Louis.
Hey, y'all keep that up north in St. Louis and Chicago, where y'all at. Don't bring that. Don't send that down here, man. Now, let me read this here. The new chronology is an alternative chronology of the ancient Near East developed by English Egyptologist David Roll and other researchers. Beginning with a test of time, the Bible from myth to history in 1995. It contradicts mainstream archaeology by proposing a major revision of established Egyptian chronology, in particular by redating Egyptian kings of the 19th through 25th dynastic period, bringing forward conventional dating by up to 350 years. Roll asserts that the new chronology allows him to identify some of the characters in the Hebrew Bible with people whose names appear in archaeological finds. The new chronology, one of several proposed radical revisions of conventional chronology, has not been accepted in academic Egyptology, where the conventional chronology was...
Read that last part one more time for me. Just
okay.
One more time.
All right. The new chronology, one of several proposed radical revisions of conventional chronology, has not been accepted in academic Egyptology, where the conventional chronology or small variations of it remains standard. Now, Emil Kurt, head of the Ancient Near Eastern History at the University of College London, is one of the standard reference works of the discipline, notes. Many scholars feel sympathetic to the critique of weaknesses in the existing chronological framework. But most archaeologists and ancient historians are not at present convinced that the radical redatings proposed stand up to the close examination. David Roll's most vocal critic has been Kenneth Kitchen, one of the leading experts on biblical history and the author of the standard work on the conventional chronology of the Third Intermediary Period of Egypt, the period most directly affected by the new chronology's redating of the 19th to 25th dynasties. There it is right there. So his redating or revisionist methodology is not accepted. It's just that simple. So when you bring forth that information, you cannot get upset because somebody is scolding your work or critiquing your work or what's the word I want to use here? Scrutinizing you because you're using that.
Right.
What was your methodology in determining what he brought forth was true? What was the archaeological evidence that he used to determine what he's pushing forth is true? You can go look at the debates he's had with Kenneth Kitchen and many other scholars of that time. They laughed at him. It was one huge money grab by this gentleman. All right. So I'm gonna let you guys take it away. I wanted to read that because that can be, I'm not saying it is, but that can be an appeal to authority because of the paradigm that you reside in. You don't see guys bringing forth David Roll's book and saying, see, this is true.
Right. And I'm gonna hand it over to Brother Khonsu in just a second. I just want to add this for everybody that's watching. This is for edification, not entertainment. So if you're mad, be mad at the knowledge and the information. Don't be mad at us, because this is about educating yourself, not entertaining yourself. So that's number one. Number two, for everybody who think they know something, I'm sorry. It's a saying that goes, if you cease to be a student, you never was a teacher in the first place. As a Kemetic saber, people get mad because I say I'm a student of the Kemetic spiritual tradition. But how can just because I've been given the title Saber, or my Saber has dubbed me qualified to teach, doesn't mean that I'll ever stop being a student. He still has a myriad of things that he could teach me and that I can still learn. So I'm always going to be a student. And Brother Khonsu mentioned that same concept earlier. So if you felt like you knew it all, and now you shaking your head because you just got some information that you didn't have, strap in, because you're about to get some more. I'm gonna hand it over to my brother Khonsu.
Understanding, with this type of knowledge, the biggest obstacle is understanding your own cultural environment. There are a lot of things that impede us because of human behavior. Me personally, I think religion is awesome. I think it's healthy, and I think it's a normal human attribute. Religion helps social bonding. Human beings, we're pack animals. So from a biological aspect, if it's not church, we're going to be religious about something because we do what other animals do in the animal kingdom. So if somebody asks me, I want to debate you, Khonsu, on the Exodus, I'm going to say, do you want to debate it historiologically, philosophically, or theologically? How do you want to debate it? So that I can have a pristine argument. Because each premise, each context has a different meaning and will dictate what evidence I'll have to produce. And then I'm going to write 500 words and give it to you. And I want the same from you, and give me 2 weeks. I need your premise. And those of us who are advanced debaters, we also give up our sources. Because if your source is true, what are you afraid of? If you know it's a true source, sure, take my sources.
Yep.
But it depends on the format. With Debate University, we're going to encourage, we want to enforce, because some people are not at that level. I promote exchanging sources and premise, because you're going to have to bring your A game. Because when somebody know and can know what you're coming with, now you got to know how to be intangible. It's no gotcha scholarship. There's no surprises. So, but some people don't really work on that paradox. But the reason why I wanted to do this live stream was to give people a premise of exactly what to expect in Debate University. What is the criteria for excellence in this particular platform? I'm more inclined to deal with the Greco-Roman influence of debating, because that's where the shit came from. That's where it comes from. In African ontology, there's no need to argue, because most of the information is mouth to ear, and they didn't give a shit about accuracy. When the elder said some shit, they just believe the elder. That was it. The arguments that we're having is because we are affected by several liberal arts and sciences that created this dichotomy in society of America. Because we communicate in English with Latin Vulgate. That's how we communicate. So that means that the grammar within that dictates the way that we neurologically process things. The way that we process the arguments and things that we talk about is based on the Herodotus school of knowledge, the universal system of knowledge that was coined by Herodotus. That's where we learn how to research. That's where we learn the methodology. So I can't sit here and go, all hail Africa, if I'm using Herodotus to determine how intelligent I am. So if I based on the subject matter, is how I'm going to address the argument. I can't argue with you about the antiquity of Africa based on Herodotus' standard of whether I'm valid or not. I can't do that. When I'm arguing, let's say I'm arguing, like I have a doctorate in Egyptology. I possess that. I got it from the University of Cairo. I have a master's in theology. Guess what, guys? It's useless. The only thing it's good for is if I happen to apply to be a museum curator, or I want to be a reverend in my own church. That's about it. Because why? Because Europeans told me I knew what I was talking about. It wasn't because Egyptians told them. Nobody in Africa, the people in Mali are not running to get to Egypt to prove that they're African.
Exactly.
Nobody in Sudan, nobody in Ethiopia, nobody in Kenya, nobody in Madagascar, nobody in Yoruba land, nobody in Nigeria is going, I must go to Egypt to prove that I'm African. It's people in the western part of Africa don't even care about Egypt. That is a cultural construct that everyone has a right to adopt if they choose to. They're all family. The entire continent of Africa is 12.5 million square miles. So Egypt is Africa. Africa ain't Egypt. So that's the premise that you would take as a scholar that's willing to debate. You have to stay within context. So I want to share something because I try to give working examples instead of just talking rhetoric all day. But
and by the way, shout out to Ngozi. He over there killing them boys right now.
Oh yeah, where's he at? I didn't even know.
He's over there at the Lions Den smoking them on the E Haplo group. It's bad over there for them boys.
Man, we gotta check that out.
I gotta see that. Let's see. I'll go here. This is a source that I used in college. And I want to kind of explain the level that I would expect in debate university. Okay? Theology and religion, two separate things.
Yep.
Let me read this. Theology is the critical study of the nature of the divine, more generally. The nature of the divine, not a sect. Religion refers to any cultural system of worship that relates humanity to the supernatural or transcendental. Subfields of theology include, so now we got to go into subfields because some people conflate the subfields of theology into religion. There's a difference. You can't use theological evidence to support a religion. There's subfields to theology. 1, biblical studies. The academic application of diverse disciplines to the study of the Hebrew and Christian scriptures. Period. The Bible deals with Hebrew and Christian scriptures. There's the Old Testament, there's the New Testament. Hebrew and Christian. We're not going to play the conflation games. No more confirmation. Now, this is just an example in religion, because this is the most popular topic that's argued, and why you don't see vetted scholars in religion like myself. Well, vetted by the European. The European said I was vetted. The European gave me a master's of theology. That doesn't mean much to shit in the real world, but white folks said I know what I'm talking about. So let's continue. Church history. Church history studies the history of Christianity and the way the Christian church has developed since its inception. Why is that important? If you're a Hebrew Israelite, you have to argue about synagogue history, not church history.
Yep.
So I need Mishnah, Gemara, and Mitzvah. You're not talking about the 613? We don't have a conversation.
Depending on, hold on, Khonsu. Depending on, are we talking about the Christian scriptures versus the Hebrew scriptures? Remember that.
We can't talk about it. See, that's my point. If you're a Hebrew Israelite and you're foolish enough to defend your sect, instead of talk about how Hebrew Israelite is beneficial as a theological form of expression, if you're dumb enough and arrogant enough to impose your religion onto the world, then I'm not going to give you the benefit to talk about Christianity ever to me.
Right.
That's a heavy
Don't
point.
talk, don't even say anything Christian-like to me.
It's checkmate.
You're going to talk, we're going to stay in your house, and I'm going to beat your ass in your house. I'm an invited guest, I'm going to beat your ass in your house. Because you said it, not me. You got the affirmative. So you got to prove yourself. I have nothing to prove.
What's heavy about it
Go ahead.
that make, I mean, like that make perfect sense. And I've never heard nobody break it down within that context, because you're a Hebrew Israelite. What are you talking about Christian scriptures for? That's go ahead. I just had to
because see, you have to study neurolinguistics, because that is a facet of human behavior, which is biological studies. That means you got to have a background in sociology to even prove a cognate between Hebrew Israelite doctrine and theology. So now I need sociological sources from experts in sociology and religion. Because if you're telling me you're interpreting the scriptures, are you interpreting it as a sectarian or theologian? Are you trying to use confirmation bias as an Israelite? Or are you speaking from a general theologian and theological philosophy around the benefits of the divine and the study of the divine and how it affects and promotes human behavior? No, you're not. So I can't give you the benefit to be able to move the goalposts when you want to be a Christian and when you want to be a Hebrew. I can't let you do that. And what that gives way to is the liturgy. If you read the liturgy, or the liturgy is the customary public, this is important, the customary public worship performed by a religious group according to its belief, customs, and tradition. You got to show me the liturgy, because if you're showing me something that is initiative, you have to show me the priestly doctrine. Well, guess what, Hebrew Israelites, and I'm only using you guys as an example, because I can go to the Christian Orthodoxy and do the same thing. Like Jabari, he's Fugazi, period. He doesn't know Egyptology, but I'm not going to go there. The liturgy, okay? When we're talking about that, I need your Kohen interpretation from the Greek, because you're conflating New Testament and the Old Testament. So I need your Kohen influence, and I also need your Talmud, because the Talmud is the commentary of the rabbi priest. The rabbi priests are not for the public. The Talmud is for those that understand mitzvah and bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. And you assimilate to Gemara and Mishnah, or you're not a priest. So you have no business talking about anything, because you proselytize in the public. That means you're not part of the clergy. You're part of the body. I need to talk to your priest. I shouldn't be talking to you. So when we understand that, we go into the moral theology, which is a major category of doctrine in the Catholic Church, usually encompassing Roman Catholic social teaching. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? Roman Catholic social teaching. Not rules and regulations, the social teaching. Why? Because Catholics have medical ethics, sexual ethics, and various doctrines on individual moral virtue and moral theory. Morals are individual interpretations of an umbrella of ethics. This is what Christians, when they protested against the church, when they became Protestants, became Baptists, Methodists, Christians, this one, that one, because they had moral codes within it. So guess what, Israelites? I need to see your Mishnah Gemara, because your moral codes are in the Mishnah Gemara. You can't just go off general, okay, I got the 613. Those are just the ethical laws. That doesn't go into the moral constructive laws. So now we have to start developing systemic or systematic theology formulas on an orderly and coherent account of the doctrines of faith. You got to show me the system and the formula of your theology. You can't just be stuck at being a Hebrew Israelite. You got to show me the theology of the Hebrew Israelite. What is the concept of Yahweh and Yahweh? And how does it benefit the planet? But you're saying you don't mess with the planet. You only mess with 12 tribes. So that contradicts the whole point of it being a religion to begin with. Or you shouldn't even be talking theology, because you're a sectarian. So if we're having a discussion, that means that I got to stay in your wheelhouse. just like Catholic studies. So now I'm going to show that, I'm going to paraphrase through this because I'm going to show you guys something else. These are the dictionaries I use all the time when I was studying as a theologian. The Concise Companion of the Jewish Religion, Concise Oxford Dictionary of the Christian Church, the Concise Oxford Dictionary of World Religions. Okay? The database of Latin dictionaries. Why Latin dictionaries? It's written in Latin Vulgate.
There you go. And
How the fuck did you get Hebrew from that?
I want to add that these would be considered primary sources because they're pulling from primary sources. So the databases that he's pulling from, if you guys try to have that conversation, it's just like the gentleman I was speaking to earlier today when we were speaking on theological studies. I said, are we talking about theology or science? Because they don't go hand in hand. They are not synonymous at all. So when you see someone going into all these different dictionaries and all these different journals, these are considered primaries according to the topic that you guys are discussing. That's why he'll go here. So don't get secondary and primaries confused here, because the primary account will be the theological discussion that you guys are having. So the first thing he's going to do is pull definitions from a theological journal. Khonsu, am I wrong?
No. That's right.
There you go.
But you're not, the typical layman is not going to do that. The Dictionary de Holistique, Geographic Ecclesiasticals. This is the French interpretation. Why? Because in Middle English and the conversion from the Eurasian to the Northwest European by way of the Anglo and the Saxon. So you have to have that because the language in that church was influential in what ultimately became the King James Version. Then you have to use certain things like the Dictionary of Buddhism. Because if someone's talking about Buddhism, the language has to be fit the grammar. Dictionary of Hinduism, Dictionary of the Bible, Digital Dictionary of Buddhism, the Ladian Armenian lexical text base. Because some of that language that you call Hebrew is not necessarily Hebrew, because that's biblical Hebrew. Some biblical words were carryover words into modern Hebrew. All right? And so these are it's so many to name, I'm not going to try to do that. But we're going into different sects, and these are all dictionaries, because I got to speak the language of the sect. I can't take layman terms language and conflate it and overlap it into a layman's conversation. We're having a religious or a theological or both type of argument. So I can't take the Black's Law Dictionary and have a religious argument with you. If I'm going to have a legal argument, I would use the Black's Law Dictionary. But you see certain people like the Moors would have a religious argument about Noble Drew Ali using the Black's Law Dictionary. That's non sequitur. You're shoehorning. You're trying to play. You're begging the question.
Exactly.
Okay? This is why you exchange sources. Because just by a person's sources will tell you if they're on the ball. Just that alone. If I see you coming with sources that are non sequitur, I'm going to cook your ass like turkey for Thanksgiving. I'm going to cook your ass every time. Because I already know where you're going. But real debaters give up their sources. If you notice the whole paradox with the Polites and all that stuff, they don't reveal their sources until the day and the moment of the debate.
That's called gotcha scholarship.
Smart enough to say, I need your sources, bro, or we don't have a debate. This topic here is too vague. I need your sources. Because I believe you're going to move out the way. I think you're going to slip and slide on. I don't trust you. So I need your sources. Here go mine. I'm not afraid of you. That nullifies all the bullshit right there. Then we go into encyclopedias. Now, what Chris said that was so deep, this is an advanced understanding, is that encyclopedias and dictionaries are highly secondary. Very rarely are they primary. But the subject of religion and theology is so old, you're not going to find too many direct accounts of anything in religion. Theology studies the psychological effects of the belief in God. So that deals with a psychosomatic social construct. That's a little different, because you're going to use semantics that are used psychologically to form social groups. That's God. But when we're talking about religion, that means that religion has been recorded in a modern prose. Therefore, dictionaries and encyclopedias are the best source available until archaeology, geology, seismology, astronomy are able to validate any semblance of fact, objectable fact. Like there's no objectable fact on the planet of Abraham ever existing. Geographically, astrologically, no other way. You can't prove it. So therefore, I can only give you a secondhand account. And the secondhand account is not even corroboratory. It's not even commentary. It's only secondary source of encyclopedia or dictionary. I promise you, you will not find a biblical archaeologist. They don't exist. You can't be an archaeologist that's going to go and prove the Bible because there's nothing to find to prove it with. They haven't done nothing up to prove the Bible. Now, you may find an archaeologist that believes in the Bible, but they won't bring their belief to the archaeological context. So that's critical. So when we go into encyclopedias, a whole nother list of encyclopedias here. New Catholic Encyclopedia Supplement, 2012, 2013. Always update those. Catholic Encyclopedia, Encyclopedia Islamica, talking about Islam. Encyclopedia Judaica. This right here is a killer for Hebrew Israelites. This right here kills them. Dead. 21,000 articles on Jewish life, culture, history, and religion. 21,000.
So if they went into West Africa,
articles. Say that again, King.
I was gonna say if they went into West Africa, you would probably find it.
You will find it there. You ain't. You're not. So that's what I'm saying. See, if you don't have the weapons, we don't have an argument.
Yeah. Like right here, can I be seen? Can you see me?
I can see.
Yep.
Okay, this is the Encyclopedia of Islam and the Muslim world because they have archaeological and archaeology to sustain their kingdoms. That's volume 2. This is volume 1. Encyclopedia of Islam and the Muslim world. And the book itself would be considered secondary, but the sources that are contained within this secondary account are primary where they're drawing their sources from. All right, so the recordation that's contained within the book would be primary because the secondary commentary is pulling from, guess what? Primary accounts. In other words, if it wasn't doing that, it's not an encyclopedia. Thank you. Weapons. And I got many more.
So you have dictionaries, guides, and handbooks.
Yeah.
I mean, all of this information has to be even biographies. I'm just scrolling and scrolling. All of this information has to be ascertained before even having a discussion. That's why I choose not to have biblical discussion. Because I'm not going to be talking to someone qualified. I'm going to be talking to someone that's promoting a sect. So I'd rather stick to the sect. So those of you who will be debating on Debate University, if it's religious, I would advise that you have a religious debate and not a theological one. This is just to help you guys out. I wouldn't try to conflate theology to religion because it's just not going to be beneficial for
Thank you.
I'm proving Israelite doctrine. Cool. We'll go there. Because if you pull out the King James Version Bible, you officially lost. You can see.
Give that definition for sectarianism. Please give a definition for that.
Sectarianism is a particular form of religion based on a culture. You have Roman religion, you have Egyptian Orthodoxy, you have Persian religion. Those are culture-based forms of worship. Theology is the study of the divine concept and the human behavior around it that develops ethics and morals.
Mm-hmm.
Every religion talks about doing the right thing by people. Everyone, at the end of the day, has an ethics system to treat people right or treat people wrong. And you're going to pay for it when you do them wrong. But outside of that comes the moralistic interpretation. Do to the advancement and the evolution of colonialism, pragmatism, fascism. Those kind of things gave way to the industrialism of theology, or the behavioral trait of acting religious. So when somebody comes from a sectarian point of view, nothing wrong with that. But be fair and let's toil in your sect. So if you're a Northern American, and I'm just using the most popular topics, if you're a Northern American and you say that you are a Hebrew Israelite, okay, that means that you live the culture of ancient Hebrews. The ancient culture of Hebrews is non sequitur to 2020 because it's not possible to live like that. There are laws of commerce that will prevent you from doing the things that Hebrews do. In ancient times, it's non sequitur. You can't prove that what was historically written for Hebrews as law applies to today. Because now we got to step out of the sectarianism and go into the theological conversation. So we'd have to have a mixed argument and a mixed premise that would have to include theology and religion. So if I was debating a Hebrew Israelite, I would say the validity of the theological and religious aspects and benefits of Hebrew Israelite doctrine. That would be my premise, because I have to include theology to determine the human behavior and is there cognates in the behavior of today and yesteryear. That is immense. And that's why these conversations usually end up perpetuating foolish arguments, because you can't fit all of that in a small paradox. You can't. It would be a 3-hour, 4-hour debate. And that's why, you know, I personally feel that you should be honest about what you're going to argue about.
Mm-hmm.
If we're arguing about Kemet, okay, be fair. Be fair. I'm arguing about Kemetic traditions. Therefore, the best I can do is argue about the American perspective of ancient Egyptian doctrine. Because the Kemetic tradition was brought forth through Egyptomania by European people. They had no concept of the life and times of people back then, such as the Beja, the Khoisan, the Twa, the people of Sudan. They didn't live like them. They were foreigners excavating somebody else's shit, and they wrote about it. So it's very rare to get primary information on Egypt because they don't have enough. So to show respect to the culture, not your personal opinion, show respect to the culture by being true to the actual information. And I know a lot of people don't like this. Dr. Ben, Ashwa Kwesi, Anthony Browder, these types of people sometimes are biased. I love all of them. Read all the books, love them to death. Really, really do. But Egypt wasn't Black power. It wasn't even close to Black. It wasn't even close. The concept of worrying about your skin color was the last thing people in Egypt was caring about. They had no concept of the darker you were, the better. They had no concept of melanin having superpowers. You don't see it written anywhere in their social scripts. Nowhere. You don't see anything about death to white folks because they didn't have a concept of skin color. On the priestly temples, you see pictures of different hues of humans because they believed in righteousness for all, that we were all children of the our gods. So their cultural constructs did not give way to any kind of separatist movement. They didn't have a need for that. They wanted to trade with everyone. It wasn't Kemet on trial with Mesopotamians. They traded Mesopotamia for lapis. They used lapis lazuli and they got it from the Mesopotamians. Why would they hate the Mesopotamians? The Levant is in an area that is tectonically Africa. So before you were Hebrew or Judean or Palestinian, you were a national African. It sits on the landmass called Africa. It wasn't called Africa back then, but you're African. You're not separate from that. I don't know. They weren't talking about no Hamite. What the heck? What? Hamites. So when you start talking Hamite, that means we have to have a biblical, religious discussion. You can't use theology to validate being a Palestinian, because the Palestinian doctrine has a chronological time frame. The Bible has a chronological time frame. Genesis chapter 10. So we have to go there. All right, that's where we have to go. That's what's dictating that. All right, so let me share something else really quickly about it. Let's see. Make sure I have it right. Yeah. This is the new method that is being coined. I forgot the date, but this is what we use now. This is what researchers use today. This is an example from Richard Bland College, .edu site. I don't really trust too many .coms. .edus are sometimes shaky, but you got to do your vetting process. So I did the vetting process for this, using this very process. And this is called the CRAP method. Now, the CRAP method is a acronym. So the CRAP method is, and I'll read the narrative initially, and I'll paraphrase all the way through for the sake of time. The CRAP test is a way to vet your sources to make sure you're using the most accurate and up-to-date information for your research. So the world is full of information, and it can overwhelm a researcher. Using the CRAP test to see if the information is rightly valuable is the mark of a good scholar. So the first acronym is C. It stands for currency. And that means the timelines of the information. Here are the bullet points. When was the information published or posted? That's important, because if it's too old, more than likely it's irrelevant. It's already been revised. Has the information been revised or updated? Is the information current or out of date for your topic? Are the links functional? 2, relevance. The importance of information for your needs. Does the information relate to your topic or answer your question? Who is the intended audience? When that information was produced, who were they producing it in front of? Were they producing it in front of editorialists? Were they introducing it in front of peers? Were they introducing it in front of experts? When they were introducing it, who was vetting them when they were doing it? Is the information of an appropriate level? An example, not too elementary or advanced for your needs, because then you can quote mine if it's too advanced for your topic. Have you looked at a variety of sources before determining this is the one you will use? Have you tried to battle yourself and prove yourself wrong before you even present the information? What are the possible arguments against your information? Would you be comfortable using the source for a research paper? Generally, in a debate, you want to write your own research paper, because that's going to ultimately be your premise, is your research paper. When you introduce yourself, you're going to recite your research paper with bullet notes. I normally don't talk about it, but since we're talking about, I've been on other platforms, I'm just not going to talk about it because people don't comprehend it. Not saying that I'm better than anyone, I just don't want to waste my time. I'm going to be honest. But Debate University, it will be in your best bet to come up with a research paper and use that as your premise. Because in your premise, if you're using a research paper, you're going to cite footnotes and you're going to cite your sources. That frames the advantage of a great debate when you're able to cite your sources in your premise. Citing your sources doesn't mean putting on a PowerPoint. It doesn't mean that. It means citing them orally. All right? Authority, the source of the information. Who is the author / publisher / source / sponsor? Are the author's credentials or organizational affiliations given? What are the author's credentials or organizational affiliates given? What are the author's qualifications to write on the topic? Is there contact information, such as a publisher or email address? We used this when we were debating O.S.I.R.I.S. We went to fellow linguists, and because they provided their contact information, and we were able to see and vet other professionals in the field of linguistics. Does the URL reveal anything about the author's source? Examples: .com, commercial; .edu, educational; .gov, U.S. government; .org, nonprofit organization; or .net, a network. That makes a big difference because that lets you know where that came from. That lets you know if it's been SEO to show up in the first 10, cached on the Google search. That lets you know just based on the URL alone if it's credible or not. Okay? Where does the information come from? Is the information supported by evidence? Has the information been reviewed or referred? Can you verify any of the information in another source or form of personal knowledge? Personal knowledge. Does the language or tone seem biased and free of emotion? Learning tonage when reading is very critical. This is how you determine sometimes even plagiarism in tonage.
Mm-hmm.
Are there spelling, grammar, or other typographical errors? Usually that means fugazi. If there are typographical errors, that means that this was never submitted to a scholarly body, because you got to spell check before you submit this shit to a scholar. Come on now. If it's misspellings on the website or the article, 9 times out of 10 is trash. Purpose. The reason the information exists. What is the purpose of the information? Is it to inform? Is it to teach? Is it to sell? Is it to entertain? Is it to persuade? Do the authors/sponsors make their intentions or purposes clear? Is the information fact, opinion, or propaganda? Does the point of view appear objective or impartial? Meaning, if I want to go and I want to debate evolution, it's not going to be in your best bet to go to an org site like creation.org. This shit's biased. Because what is a .org? Let's go back up here and see. It's a nonprofit organization. Quite naturally, they're going to support creationism because they're getting donations from other profitable organizations to promote creationism. So why would I go to a creationist site to validate a claim? I'm going to go to a corroborating site that's definitely not a .org. That's going to nullify that. Okay? Does the point of view appear objective or impartial? As I said, are the political, ideological, cultural, religious, institutional, or personal beliefs? Which one is it? So these are the acronyms that spell out crap. Is your research crap or is it valid? CRAAP. This is the type of work that goes in to proper research. If you're serious, and I was, like chomping at the bit to share this, Brother Pianki, because I wanted everyone to understand the level that Team O.S.I.R.I.S is coming on, the level that you need to step your game up in the conscious community about African people. Like, we are far too advanced to play these confidence games by being pragmatists with no information. With absolutely no information. And then when you get challenged, you get an attitude.
Right.
You get an attitude.
Right.
Because you're intelligent. So that's just what I wanted to share, man. And, your commentary is respected and needed. A shout out to Mongo. I see you out there, Mongo. What's up, man?
I definitely appreciate you coming on and putting this lesson down. And I think it's needed because I think everybody, shout out to the brother. I got a lot of respect and
Look, Pianki, look. Everybody fucking with us, dude. I'm just telling you like it is. Everybody fucking with us, dude. It's just
I'm trying to parse my word because I know it's gonna be something behind what I'm about to say. But
I'm just being honest with you. You get up here with me, Khonsu, Melvin, and Gozy, especially the four that's known for debating. Ain't nobody fucking with us, man.
But I'm gonna quote him anyway. But like I said, shout out to the brother. I'm speaking to none other than Sinetta, who say he always tell people it look easy when you looking at people do it, but when you get on the stage, it's something different. And everybody think they're a debater, but then when our brother Khonsu educates you on what it really means to debate, I'm sure it's a lot of people out there second guessing whether or not they really want to get into that arena. So, really think about whether you want to step into this arena when it comes to real Black intelligentsia and academia as it pertains to bringing forth whatever it is you think your knowledge is. So really think about it, because the brother just laid out for you what the credentials gonna have to be in order for you to qualify in this particular stage. So really think about whether you're ready for this platform. You got brothers like our brother Melvin, you got brothers like Chris, and presiding over it all, you got big brother Khonsu and Ngozi. So this is not something that you want to step into lightly. This ain't a pissing contest. This the real deal. So really get your mind right before you decide to step up.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate brother Chris as usual, brother Melvin. We definitely are looking for brothers, sisters that want to engage in debating. Don't be intimidated. It's the betterment. It's for the betterment of everyone. Hebrew Israelites, Christian apologetics, biologists, geneticists. Everyone's welcome to have a discussion, man.
Yeah, and I do wanna. I told Chris about this, and the litmus test is coming because him and Chris actually gonna be having a dialogue on my channel. The brother. He called himself Nobody from channel Trust and Believe the Gospel. This is one Christian apologist who I know comes with a level of intelligence, a level of scholarship that's rare amongst that arena. That's not well known as far as like the Damian Richardsons and the like. But he brings his A game to every dialogue I've seen him participate in, and he definitely got a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of scholarship that he brings to the table, just an arbitrary conversation. So I'm looking forward to seeing him and Chris dialogue, just in a basic kind of dialogue, and see if he prepared to dip his toe into the debate university. So I'm gonna let all the brothers kind of close out, and we'll say Brother Khonsu for last, but we'll start with I know you ain't say much, Brother Melvin, but go ahead and whatever you got to put forth, tell people where to find you, what you got going on, and we'll pass it to Chris, and then we'll go to our Brother Khonsu.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, Khonsu and Chris, hit it on the head today. Really wasn't much I had to add because they gave you the general points. Only thing I would say is don't be afraid to give up those sources. That doesn't mean that you can't argue. You still have to argue. You still have to show that you are a debater, even if they have your source. So I think a lot of people that get scared of that because they think that their opponent has an advantage by them sharing their sources, and that's not always the case. But yeah, man, you can find me where you find the rest of us. Team O.S.I.R.I.S on Facebook. Also we are on the debate league, the debate university on Facebook. We'll be adding a Facebook group as well. So definitely stay tuned.
Yes, sir. MVP.
Hey man, as always, man, get your scholarship up and not your hollership. You guys can catch us over here at Team O.S.I.R.I.S. We definitely putting in some work tonight. Shout out to Ngozi, Khonsu. When I tell you it was getting ugly over there.
Where is this at? Where is it at?
At the Lion's Den.
How do you get to that?
It's on Facebook.
It's on Facebook.
Jeremiah Judah's channel. And when I tell you, it was ugly, it was ugly. He was getting over there.
He was throwing them daggers all over their head. They just ducked. That's all they could do.
Ugly. So Team Osiris is definitely in the building, putting in work, getting shit done as always. Shout out to Khonsu. Shout out to Brother Pianki. Ain't nobody fucking with us, man. And I'm gonna close out like that. It just ain't nobody fucking with us. And I'll give a shout out to Domo and congratulations to Brother Inyame from Team Dark Side. Peace, guys.
All right, Khonsu.
Yeah, man. I appreciate those who are willing to listen, and I hope that it helps and it brings quality to your level of debating. No matter what you stand for, what you research, just bring your A game and make it a great experience. I hope this is a benefit to everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. And once again, salute to the brothers coming on, Team Osiris in the building. Again, this is about edification and education. This is not about entertainment. So the brother gave you tools to step your game up. Hopefully you will do so. Once again, shout outs and salutes to the entire Team Osiris, Queen Tiffany French. Salute to that sister. And we're going to keep doing what we do. This has been Paradigm Shift TV 314. We'll be black at you again. Until next time, it's peace. Peace to y'all brothers.